When I was 24, I heard a story that changed my life. It changed how I looked at money, income, and power. It changed how I spend money, how I make money, and how I design my life. And I could not be more excited to share this story with you now. 1, 2. Bad news, ladies. I'm never buying a diamond. I ain't gonna be putting a ring on it. There ain't gonna be no diamond. It's not happening. And to explain why, I want to tell you a story that involves the Diamond King of Canada and his insights into how we all live. Now, if you know anything about diamonds, you know that diamonds were not always traditional for an engagement ring, and that diamond supply is often artificially kept down.
Honey, will you marry me?
So it shouldn't be very surprising that this Diamond King in his advice referenced serfdoms. This was when you had a lord who would own a lot of land in medieval times, and the serfs, who were farmers who were obligated to work that land. They technically made money working the land, but then everything they needed to live, they would buy from the lord who owned that land, who gave them the money. So ultimately, they weren't really getting wealthy or having any sort of freedom. They weren't technically slaves, I guess, but they were working land for someone who owned the land and then taking the money they got to buy things back from that person who controlled the prices of those goods that could kind of regulate the whole thing to make sure they always maintained all the wealth. And this Diamond King was very clear that the way we live now is just modern day serfdom, that most people are doing the exact same thing. Now, maybe they work for one lord and they buy their things from a different lord. But he said that ultimately, when you step back and look at it, it's the same thing. When you look at how hard people work and then how much of their money goes back out to buy the crap that other serfs are working for other lords to make this stuff. Now, was he saying that we should level society and start all over again? I don't think so. Probably as one of the lords, he's very happy how things are. I think the advice was given from a personal mentorship perspective. Listen, this is how everyone's living. We're not going to be able to change it. But you and I need to be aware of this and need to look at our consumeristic habits and where our money goes and say, hey, that job for that lord, there is enough extra money there that you can save it and reinvest and maybe one day become a lord yourself. Or maybe remove yourself from that system and be like the lone wanderer who kind of plays outside the system and is just doing their own thing. I was sharing this advice and story with someone recently and it was making me think about it. And I realized just how true it is. You see this with people who work in a certain industry. You know, someone works in tech, they tend to spend a lot of money in tech. They work in hospitality, they tend to spend a lot of money at restaurants and bars and this sort of thing. It's there. We are earning this money temporarily and then just giving it right back.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
Well, what does this actually mean you should do? Well, first, think about more of a minimalistic approach to life. Think about where your money goes. You really need the latest tech, the latest things. Sometimes we do need stuff. Sometimes it's worth making an investment, but you want to be really thoughtful about it. Think about it before you spend all that money you worked hard for just for the sake of it. So I would think about a lot of material goods and consumerism in terms of things not to spend money on. So where should your money go? Well, I think a simple rule is put your money where it will make you more valuable. This could be actually making you richer financially in terms of investing it. It can also mean investing in yourself and upgrading yourself. So say you go and you take a course on presenting and it's going to make you a better presenter, and you figure, well, this course costs $1,000 and if I become a better presenter, I'll probably get promoted at work or I'll be able to be more successful in my own business or whatever it is. That can be very much worth it, right? So I think investing in yourself or investing in financial assets are the two areas that are going to make you wealthier the following year rather than the opposite where you're like, oh, this phone I bought is just older now and I have less money and I need a new one. A few quick tips that might make this a bit easier. First off, limit your inputs, limit your exposure to advertising. This is of course much easier in some countries than others. Remember, a lot of advertising is based on convincing you that you need something to be whole, to be happy, to be fulfilled. You need to buy something. That's like the basic advertising premise. Convince people that they're not enough. You're gonna be ugly, fat, lonely, uncool, whatever it is, unless you get this thing.
Because by the time you read about it in the Wall Street Journal, it's already too late.
Next up is to stop looking for validation externally. As long as you're living for external validation, hint, hint, Instagram likes, you're going to be a complete sucker and open to buying whatever the latest thing is to sell us. We are deeply wired to want to be accepted by our peers and community, and that can be massively taken advantage of. Third, find a purpose in your life and align what you're doing with your bigger purpose. I've got to be honest, my entrepreneur friends and creative friends who make a full-time living from something they love doing, they're rarely buying the latest fashion labels or gadgets or whatever else unless they really have a passion for that, because their confidence comes from doing something that's important to them and following through on their dreams, and they're just not caught up in that BS because they're enjoying their lives and doing something much more important. I do think that a lot of the consumerism is a distraction when we have a job we don't really like that is giving us the money, and when we're spending a lot of effort burying our dreams and passions and hopes as low as possibly we can. And in order to distract ourselves from that, we go out and buy things. So perhaps, like in most of my videos, I will encourage you once more to really do whatever it takes to pursue what is most important to you in life. And of course, if you would like help doing that, getting clarity or overcoming the fear and following through on it, I'll include a link to a page where you can learn more about working one-on-one with me. That'll pop up here in a card and in the description. And in the comments, let me know, did this hit home for you? What are you thinking about this story? Speaking of stories, a few weeks back, I found myself in Rwanda in the north on this beautiful lake, sitting out at a hotel, and table over was a group of gentlemen and a few other people. Definitely some kind of warlords, blood diamond smugglers. See, the lake is shared with Rwanda and Congo. And one could assume that with a speedboat, it would be relatively easy to go back and forth to maybe bring things, certain kinds of red colored diamonds over the lake, and that a lot of people might say do business back and forth there. There were some interesting looking characters. Perhaps one more reason not to buy a diamond. You know, I have so many of these crazy stories that have come up in the last couple of years that I don't really want to make entire videos about. I think I'm going to start putting them at the end of the videos as like a reward for people who watch to the end. So like the last 45 seconds will be like, oh yeah, and then there was that time I drank a bottle of tequila with a cartel boss in Mexico after hosting an event there for my clients. Actually, it was before the event for my clients. It was a weird night. Maybe if you watch to the end of all my videos, you'll hear that story soon.